has been training, teaching, and guiding many, many souls in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and outside, all over the world, traveling and giving the message of Bhagavad Gita. On the basis of Vedic literature's wisdom, Prabhuji has written already 27 different books and thousands of articles, close to 4,000 articles on Bhagavad Gita only. So all those articles are available on gitadaily.com, and also many, many spiritual insights, those questions which are very, very difficult and intricate according to Vedic subjects, which is mentioned in spiritualscientist.com. Prabhuji has answered many, many questions. And anyone who wants, they can also ask questions there, and Prabhuji keeps replying. That for years he is doing. On the basis of that, he has written many, many articles, and all those articles have been compiled into many, many books. And those books are like Energy, Spiritual Scientist, Science of Recession, Why Do We Need a Temple, and many, many more. So this time Prabhuji has come up with another new book, that is Gita for CEO, and that will be available in the stall just outside after the class is over. And today Prabhuji is also giving a talk on the same. So any of Hare Krishna? No, Hare Krishna. Yeah. So Prabhuji also has been traveling all over the world. He has gone to UNESCO press conference, peace conference, World Peace Conference. He's an invited speaker in TEDx. He also has given lectures at Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, MIT, Cambridge, and so on, and many, 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 many universities. In America also, wherever Prabhuji goes, he has been giving so many spiritual insights to the people, and the world needs this. So we are very, very extremely fortunate to have amongst us His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Let us welcome him to our Shri Radha Govindadev Mandir in our traditional manner by 3 times loudly chanting Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjali Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can all become leaders in service to you, who are the supreme leader. Hare Krishna. So I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. It's the first time I'm visiting this beautiful temple. It's a joy to behold the architecture, and all the more to see so many devotees vibrantly performing kirtan and being there for the programs. So, who set this up? Where's my pen? Did you take out my pen from here? It was just behind this. Sorry for that. Sorry for that. So I think I'll use it like this only. It's too thin. So, I'll speak today on the topic of leadership based on the Bhagavad Gita. As was mentioned in the introduction, I have written a book called Gita for the CEO. Now, if we consider the Bhagavad Gita, the Gita is a conversation between leaders, Krishna and Arjuna. Both, if we put aside the transcendental aspect and focus primarily on the way their story is manifested, both of them are, in today's language, self-made leaders. Nothing was handed down on a platter to them. Although Krishna is God, when he manifested in this world, his very life was threatened right from his birth. And he had to flee just to survive. And then he came back and he overthrew the tyrant who had been terrorizing society. And nobody helped him in that. He did it all single-handedly. And what is remarkable is, even after he did this spectacular act of deposing a horrible ruler, he did not accept power for himself. He was the protector of the kingdom, not the ruler of the kingdom. He deferred to Ugrasen. Before Kamsa, his father Ugrasen had been the king, but Kamsa overthrew his father and became the king himself. So after Krishna removed Kamsa, he became the king. And did he become the king? No. He gave the power back to Ugrasen. So that shows how Krishna has the disposition of a leader, but he didn't seek the position of a leader. And that is what makes this theme relevant for all of us. We may or may not have positions of leadership. In one sense, every one of us informally is a leader. The first thing which I'm asked this question is, if this Gita for the CEO. So what if we are not CEOs? Is this book not meant for us? Well, at one level, every one of us is meant to be the CEO of our own lives. So we are meant to guide and direct our lives. But beyond that, we are all informal leaders in our own ways. We may be leaders in our family, we may be leaders in our social circles. So we have leadership as a responsibility for every one of us. Right now, all of you are sitting and hearing this talk. If some of you start dozing, some of you start looking at your phones, then what are you doing? Seeing you, others are also getting influenced, isn't it? So it is that every one of us, whatever we do, it affects others. So in one sense, when we talk about Gita for the CEO, so 3 levels, I use the acronym SIP. We are all meant to be self-leaders. And we all have the potential for leadership. We are all also informal leaders. We may not have a position for leadership, but we are all informal leaders. And then every one of us has been gifted with much potential. And if we develop this potential, who knows how much good we can do in the world. In fact, how much good Krishna can do through us. Srila Prabhupada himself was never appointed as a leader by his spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada was almost on the sidelines of the Gaudiya Math. He did not inherit any property, he did not get any followers, he did not get any resources. So he was not officially a leader in the Gaudiya Math, but he had the disposition of a leader. And then through that, hundreds of temples, nearly 100 books, and thousands, even millions of devotees and devotionally minded people manifested. So this is the sip of wisdom. Self-leadership, we are all meant to be leaders of our own lives. We are all informal leaders according to our capacity, and who knows what potential we have. So, everything that I'll speak today will be summarized in this one diagram that we're talking about the position of leadership and the disposition of leadership. So, if we consider 4 quadrants, there is the position of a leader, and that means a person has an official designation given by some external authority. You are in charge of this project, you are in charge of this organization. That's the position. And then there is the disposition of leadership. Now, the position is something which is externally given. But disposition is something which has to be internally cultivated. Now, what does disposition mean? So, especially in terms of disposition of leadership. For most people, the idea of a leader is, there is no meaning to a leader. Okay, there's an echo coming, isn't it? Okay. There is no meaning to a leader without a follower. That's the idea most people have. And there's some truth to it. Nowadays, when somebody is introduced, you may say that, you may not know it, but this person is world famous. Now, if you don't know it, how is the person world famous, isn't it? Nobody is actually world famous. Very, very few people are. But the idea is, it might seem like an oxymoron, isn't it? That if somebody is world famous, but you don't know it. So, the fame has not really reached everywhere in the world. So, you may say that if somebody is a leader, so does a leader depend on having followers? Well, you may say, what is the meaning of being a leader without followers? Well, yes and no. It is true, generally speaking, when we talk about leadership. Specifically, we're talking about the disposition of leadership. So, we may focus on how many people are following us. Now, traditionally the word following means listening to, obeying. Nowadays in social media world, the word following has a completely different meaning. Most followers on social media are not followers, isn't it? They are wanderers. And they wander to various places. They are just doing nectar shopping. But the point is, often we may think that how much others value me, that will determine whether I can be a leader, isn't it? If I tell somebody to do something, if I give some guidance, if I give some inputs and people don't care at all, then we may say that means that a person cannot be a leader. How much others value me, that is one aspect to it. But what is much more important in the disposition of the leader is how much value I can add to others' lives. How much value I can add to others' lives. So, this is the disposition of a leader. A leader is not concerned about, all of you place me on a higher position, and you accept me and you bow down to me. That is not the mood of a leader. The mood of a leader is actually that all of you have hidden potential. There is so much more value to your life than what is presently being manifested. And I would like to help you to discover that value. I would like to add that value to your life. If you look at Srila Prabhupada, in India, he was respected because he was a sadhu. And at least in 1960s, a sadhu would be given significant cultural respect. Prabhupada wanted people to be interested in philosophy and follow the philosophy. That he was not getting much. But wherever he would go, people would offer him respects, give him place to stay, give him food, wash his feet, do his puja. That kind of basic cultural etiquette, he had many followers. But when he went to America, no, at that time there were hardly any Indians. The Indian culture, Indian spirituality had influenced the West. But it was not a substantial influence. There are many spiritual teachers who had gone, but they had gone across decades. So hardly anyone knew what a sannyasi was. Now, to a Western mind, when they see somebody wearing a dhoti, now for them, a dhoti is basically nothing but an oversized diaper. So it was, nobody offered Srila Prabhupada any respect. We know that when Prabhupada was in 1965 staying in the Lower East Side, and there were some hippies staying with him, they were in some ways interested in learning from him, but when Prabhupada was to do the morning ablutions, he had to stand in a queue to use the restroom. So there was no respect that Prabhupada was being given specially. But Prabhupada's focus was on how much value can I bring to people's lives. And when he started focusing on that, helping them to learn about Krishna, learn about spiritual growth, find inner happiness, find a purpose for their life by which they could share happiness with others, then they started getting attracted. And then they became followers. So the idea is, leadership can be organizational and leadership can be organic. Organizational means what? Somebody is put at a particular position and then others come as followers based on that position. Or this person is the leader of this particular project, this is a particular team leader in this particular company, this particular in charge of this particular group. So others come and become followers. So that's through position. So through organization one may get some leadership. But organic leadership is the person leader with the person with the disposition of leadership is just one among others. But when they have the disposition, what they do is they add value to people's lives. And when they keep adding value to people's lives, when what they are providing is seen as valuable, then what happens? Then that person is organically elevated. And that's how the organic leadership happens. So this is coming from disposition, one naturally becomes a leader. The Gita is a book of empowerment. The empowerment that the Gita offers us is that it inspires within every one of us the disposition of leadership. When the verse karmannevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, what in this context it means is that it is our karma to serve others. Now serving others doesn't necessarily mean fulfilling their desires. Serving others means doing what is good for them. Sometimes it may be according to their desires, sometimes it may be different from their desires. But we add value to people's lives. And when we add value, in response, some people will accept us as leaders and followers, some may not. So being detached, ma phaleshu kadachana. So the disposition of a leader is, the focus is on how much value I am providing to people, not how much value people are giving to me. So this is the mood of this 2.47. Leadership means that we are not attached to the phala. Phala is how much others value me. But we are attached to the karma. Karma is how much value am I adding to people's lives. So now let's look at these 4 quadrants and try to understand how this combination of the disposition and the position of leadership may work. Now if we consider that somebody has the position of leadership, but they do not have the disposition of a leader. So we can call this as the 4 quadrants. From the right bottom we start 1, 2, the left top is 3, and the right top is 4. So if we consider the 4 quadrants of leader with respect to leadership, somebody has the position of leadership, but they do not have the disposition of leadership, then actually they will be the most destructive. Because they have the position, they will have the power, they will have the resources. And because they don't have the disposition, they will end up abusing the power. The power will be used for self-aggrandizement. And the example of this is Duryodhan and Dhritarashtra. So Duryodhan and Dhritarashtra, both of them, by their birth, they got power. And India is a democratic country, but for a major part of the democratic history, the power was going along by dynastic lines. And even when those who were, according to the dynasty, ruling, were not qualified, still they had the power. And many of the problems that India as a country is facing is because of mismanagement. So, now that doesn't mean somebody who comes in a dynasty cannot have the disposition of leader. They can have. But the point is, if somebody has the position and does not have the disposition, then they often can make, at best, so in this quadrant, when there is position without disposition, what happens is, at best, they will make unproductive decisions. It means what they will do, they will use the power for less than optimal purposes. At worst, they can make counterproductive decisions. So, in many ways, Dhritarashtra was he was a villain, but he is a passive villain. He is not really himself doing many wrong things. But what happens is, somebody has power and they are not using that power, either for good or for bad. Power does not stay stationary. So if they are not using that power, then somebody else will start using that power through them. And who was that person who was doing that? Duryodhan. So what happened is, Dhritarashtra was on the throne, but the power was with someone else. That was with Duryodhan. That was the state of the Indian government also for many years. One person was in the chair, another person was in power. Isn't it? So the idea is that if somebody is not exercising power, power does not stay static. Power will be used, if not constructively, then destructively. Now Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan, their primary concern throughout was, how can we gain the kingdom? A very little thought about what they would do with the kingdom. There is very little description of any good that they did for the kingdom. Their concern was, we want the kingdom and we want a kingdom more prosperous than our cousins when they got a kingdom also. So, now in one sense, comparison and competition are just facts of life. So, comparison is a functional necessity. Functional necessity means that from a practical perspective of functionality in life, comparing is required. So, if a heavy box is to be carried, then we may see who is well built. And we may ask that person to carry the box. Isn't it? If we want to lead a kirtan, we will look at who has good singing ability. Somebody has good singing ability, when they sing, people will say more, more. If somebody who has not a good singing ability, they sing, people will say no more. Isn't it? So, from a functional perspective, in life, There are tasks to be done, there are problems to be solved, and these are real and serious issues. So therefore, comparison is necessary. But comparison is very different from a comparing mentality. Comparison as a functional necessity is task based, and it is occasional. Occasional means when the occasion comes up, when a particular task is required, for that purpose we compare. But the comparing mentality, that is not occasional, that is perpetual. Whenever somebody has a comparing mentality, whenever they see someone, the first thing they see is, okay, is this person better than me or worse than me? So, especially among teenagers with the use of social media, there's a lot of insecurity coming. The excess use of social media is associated with increased depression, especially among young girls. Because what happens is that as soon as people are there on social media, then, okay, how many people like my photo? How many people are following me? And as soon as we see someone else, oh, does this person look better than me or this person look worse than me? Is this person richer than me or this person, or am I richer than this person? If you're in college, it may be that, is this person smarter than me or am I smarter than this person? So that when it becomes perpetual, when we can't stop comparing, then it is damaging. It is devastating, in fact. Because then it is not becomes task-based, it becomes self-based. That means it becomes a part of our identity itself. As soon as I see someone who is better than me, then immediately I start feeling insecure. This can happen even in devotional circles if we start weighing externals more than the internal connection with Krishna. If we are distributing books, as soon as we see somebody else has distributed more books than me, we start feeling insecure, we start feeling unworthy. If we are raising funds, if somebody has raised more funds than us, we start feeling insecure. If we are preaching, if we are sharing Krishna's message, and for someone else's program, more people come than they come for our program, immediately we start feeling insecure and unworthy. That is unhealthy. So why am I talking about this comparing mentality? See, when somebody does not have the disposition of a leader, the disposition of a leader will be that how much can I add value to people's life? Okay, for my talk, 10 people might have come. For somebody else's talk, 50 people might come. But these 10 people have come. Let me share the message in a way that will bring value to their life. So when somebody does not have the disposition of a leader, they're constantly caught in comparing. And that was the plight of Duryodhana. And because of that, in some way or the other, he wanted to be on top. So when they start, here there is disuse. Disuse means no use of power. And here there is abuse of power. So Dhritarashtra did not do anything for the kingdom. Duryodhana used the kingdom for his own ends. Because the purpose is what? Simply to try to get on top. So this is where leadership, when somebody has the position of a leader without the disposition of a leader, they can cause a lot of harm because they will abuse the power. So Duryodhana used his royal power to try to first poison Bhima. Then he tried to have a servant paid Purochan, and he had him burn the Pandavas alive. That was the plan. So all these are examples of abuse of power. So somebody who has the position but not the disposition is extremely dangerous. And if we crave too much for the position of leadership, okay, I want to have a lot of followers, I want to preach a lot and make a lot of people into devotees. And if our focus is more on the numbers, if we're focusing more on the position, one indication of the position is the number, without cultivating the disposition, then we can also end up doing disservice. So this is the quadrant where most people who seek power, if you look at the history of humanity, Many times people sought power, but if they have not cultivated the disposition of leadership, then it ends up causing a lot of damage. So there was in the history of France, there was King Louis and his wife Marie Antoinette. So they were just living in obscene luxury while the peasants were starving. And then the common citizens came and said, "We don't have bread, please give us some bread." And the queen was so disconnected from reality, she said, "Why are you so bothered about bread? If you don't have bread, then eat cakes." And, the citizens they're so poor that eating cake was like a dream for them. And that remark was what is said to have set off the French Revolution. And eventually the king and the queen, they were all beheaded. All the royalty was beheaded. It was one of the most ghastliest or bloodiest of revolutions. It went on for years and years. Still Napoleon Bonaparte came up. And again, he again became a king. But the point is that somebody who does not have the position of a leader, and somebody who has the position but not the disposition, that's harmful. And many of us may feel, "Oh, I don't have a position of leadership," and we may start craving for that, working for that. Sometimes people start doing politicking and doing this and doing that. Well, we may end up doing more harm than good. Now, the second quadrant is where a person does not have the position of leadership and the person does not have much at the disposition of leadership also. So, in one sense, these persons are harmless. Unless they start following this person. So the example of somebody who did not have the position or the disposition of a leader, those are Duryodhan's brothers. They were in royalty, but they were born in royalty, but they were not leaders in the sense that they never thought for themselves. They didn't have the disposition and they subordinated themselves to Duryodhan. So, once I was invited to a college to give a talk on leadership lessons from the Mahabharata. It was a very leftist college. So they said, "Don't tell the normal stories, just tell something new." So I told them, leadership lessons from Duryodhan. So I started by saying, how many of you have brothers or sisters who are younger to you? So almost half of the people raised their hands. How many of you have younger siblings? Okay, again, here also it's more than half. So how many of you can get your younger siblings to obey you? It's not that easy, isn't it? So Duryodhan got 99 of his younger siblings to obey him. So he surely had some leadership ability, isn't it? But he misled all of them, isn't it? So the point is that somebody who can command and demand, now whether he was commanding or commanding is more from inspiration. When you command respect, don't demand respect. Now whether Duryodhan was doing it by fear, they knew that, they could see that what Duryodhan was doing to those whom he considered his rivals. How, as a bare teenager, he had tried to poison Bhima. And that creates fear. If this person can do something to someone like this, who's a cousin, somebody who is their follower and goes against them, what will that person do? So whether they were following out of respect or out of fear, but they were following. So was he inspiring them or was he terrorizing them? It depends. Quite likely they are falling out of fear. But somebody who does not have the position or the disposition of a leader, they generally can't do much harm. Now to some extent, they can do good also if they follow a good leader. But quite often, such people follow the path of least resistance. That means whichever person is the leader, they will follow that person. To some extent, Indians are leaders in technology. Indians are leaders in business. If you go abroad, I've been traveling across the world for the last 10 years, and Indians are respected immigrants everywhere in the world. In fact, in America, Indians are called the model minority. We are minority over there. They're a model minority. Model minority means if all immigrants to America were like Indians, they said America would have so much more prosperity. Indians are law-abiding, tax-paying, family-raising, and very responsible. So, in some ways, Indians are leaders. But often this leadership is more in individual enterprise. In one's own business, in taking care of one's own family, one will be very resourceful. But because of subjugation by foreign powers for millennia almost, Indians have not taken political leadership. So, in contrast, India has a huge number of people in America. The denomination is large. In fact, Indians are the wealthiest minority in America. So, Indians are respected and envied. And respect and envy is more or less two sides of the same coin. Respect is offered willingly and happily. Envy is respect offered unwillingly and unhappily. So, as compared to Indians, the influence of Chinese people, Chinese are second among what they consider model minority. Theirs is much more because the Chinese government works with Chinese nationals in various countries to gain political influence. So now currently in the upcoming government, there are a number of Indians who are in influential positions, in America I'm talking about. So the point is, taking up the disposition and the position of leadership. So much of the Indian denomination, Indian people basically, Indian demography, that the urge to reform or change the system, that is not there so much. Okay, we'll try to work somehow through the system and move up. So the system is good, we'll go up fast and we'll do a lot of good. The system is not good, we will go up, forget everyone else. So it's not that. So Indians are very hardworking, competent, dedicated, but that disposition of leadership, especially in terms of changing the system when there are problems in the system, that is not there. Just rise through the system, change yourself so that you can keep rising, which is a good thing, you can keep rising, but then the system stays corrupt, and that leads to problems. So this is somebody has neither the disposition nor the position, then they can be used by either people. Now, somebody who has the disposition of a leader, but they do not have the position of a leader. This is where a lot depends on individual initiative. Their influence will depend on their individual initiative. Now, how much are they ready to act according to the disposition of leadership, even if they do not have that position? And the example of this is Vidura. Now, Vidura was born in a royal family, but he was not considered a royal because he was born through a cross. He was born through a maidservant when the Niyoga ritual was performed. So he was not considered a successor. He was a minister, but he did not have any power for decision making. Being in an advisory role can be one of the most frustrating things in life if nobody takes your advice, isn't it? So Vidura was in that role, and what happens, this is one of the challenges, that in life, what our roles change. So generally speaking, as we grow, our roles rise upwards. So with the passage of time, say as time passes, our role grows upward. We may gain education, we may gain position in a job, we gain financial autonomy. Then normally our role rises upwards. So then we have, as our role rises, our influence increases. But what happens is, if our influence goes down, say if somebody with passage of time, their trajectory goes downwards, then it becomes a problem. And this is often the challenge with parenting. You know what happens? Initially, parents are in an executive role. Executive role means they do things for their children, they get their children to do things for them. But as the children grow into teenagers, as they start developing their own life, the parents have to shift to an advisory role. And most parents find it very difficult. So, shifting to an advisory role. Why is my child not listening to me? The urge is to force them to listen. So, this shift is very difficult. So, what happens is, in India, parents try to stick to this role. In the West, right from the beginning, only they're advisory. Now, that's not very helpful. It's like a 3-year-old child. You ask them, okay, which dress do you want to wear? And a child has to go to school, and a child has 25 dresses, and a child spends half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours thinking about which dress to wear. Now, wear this and go now. He said, you cannot let the child decide. The parents have to decide. But you cannot have an adult child and say that I'll decide for you. So basically, our roles change over time. So Vidura didn't have any executive role. He had only an advisory role. And Dhritarashtra would never take his advice. Now, it's one thing that somebody says, I don't care for you only. I don't want to listen to you. Then, okay, we can just disconnect from that person. But Vidura's situation was, Dhritarashtra would always listen to him and never listen to him. So, listen can mean hear, and listen can mean follow. So, Dhritarashtra would always listen. He wanted Vidura to be around him. He said he liked to hear good instruction. But that's all he liked to do. So, he would just not follow. So now, what does one do in such a situation? When one has the disposition of a leader, but not the position of a leader. Then the key thing over here is, one requires what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. See, it is in this situation that the mind can get very agitated. The principle Krishna talks about, Abhyasa and Vairagya. That applies for us in all phases of life, but especially when somebody is in this phase, one needs to move toward the phase of getting a position. But in that, one needs abhyasa, that is persistence. One needs to persist. So Vidura kept giving advice. He persisted in that, but there was abstinence. Abstinence means he did not insist that the advice has to be followed. He did not reject the relationship because the advice not followed. So, there were times when Dhritarashtra rejected him. So, at that time, Vidura left, but Dhritarashtra then would call him back. So, he never broke the relationship. Now, in many ways, the Pandavas were also in this position, or in this place. They had the disposition of being leaders, but they did not have the position. Although they were born in royalty, they were not provided any comfort and facility because of their royalty. They were only threatened because of their royalty. Sometimes, it is said that Karna faced so much discrimination. Oh, he was born as a Kshatriya. He was born to a Kshatriya mother. But he never got the respect that came from it. That is true. But if you see, the Pandavas were born Kshatriyas, and what did they get out of it? They got constant threats and persecution. So actually, the Pandavas' childhood and youth was far worse than Karna's. There is no record of anybody trying to assassinate Karna. Anybody trying to kill his entire family for that matter. So what happened was that in one situation, we could say Karna was also over here. Hmm? But unfortunately, Karna went in this direction. Karna, to some extent, he had the position, did he have a disposition of a leader? Well, in the sense that he had archery power. So we could say he had certain level of virtue, he was charitable, he had that. But unfortunately, when he got the position, which was given to him by Duryodhan, the result of that was, he became very attached to the position and he became very attached to the person who gave him that position. And because of that, he ended up losing the disposition of a leader. Kshatriya is meant to protect. Is meant to protect citizens. But, so what did Karna do? It was Karna who suggested that Draupadi be dishonored and disrobed. So the most horrendous things that somebody can suggest. Now, there are people who commit crimes. If somebody molests a woman or something like that, they will generally do it in a private place and nobody can see, there is no eyewitness. But if somebody does it in public, that means they have no fear of the law. Isn't it? If somebody goes to a police station and does it, then not only they have no fear of the law has fear of them. Isn't it? So, for the Kauravas to do like this, so Karna suggested it, Duryodhana and others did it. Horrendous abuse of power. So this is, somebody has the position, but they did not have the disposition. So this can lead to horrendous perversity. So right now there is a case, that was a conviction happened in France. It's rocked all of Europe. There's a case of a 70-year-old husband, and for a dozen years, he was drugging his wife, and he was inviting all unknown men to come and rape his wife. And almost 50-60 people did that. And he would shoot it, and he got some perverse pleasure out of it. And he's been considered the worst sexual predator in the history of modern times. And of course, there are many people who have done far more crimes. But the point is, somebody who is supposed to be a protector does something like that. That's complete perversion. So, somebody gets the position but does not have the disposition. Kshatriya is one who protects from hurt. But it is a person who causes hurt. So that is extremely dangerous. Now if you consider the Pandavas, they had the disposition of leadership. That's why even when Bhima was poisoned, Yudhishthira said, let's not break our family. Let's keep a low profile. Maybe Duryodhana is just insecure because we have come and he feels we are a threat to the kingdom. We are a threat to his position. So Yudhishthira said, let's keep things calm. Let's not escalate things. So even when immediately his own brother was attempted to be killed, his consideration was, no, we don't want to disrupt the family. He was thinking like a leader. Later on also, see, somebody who is very power hungry, their concern will be, how dare you do this to me? Now I'll use my power to do this to you. No, they didn't do that. After that also, when the Pandavas, they won the hand of Draupadi, and then they were no longer helpless children of a king the king was dead and they had no power. They had now become the sons-in-law of a powerful rival king. So Dhritarashtra could no longer neglect them. So then Dhritarashtra invited them back and he gave him half the kingdom. But that half was in name only. It's like, we invite 2 guests for prasad. And we invite 2 guests, and one of them we gave Rajbhog. And other guest, we give yesterday's remaining food. And both of the plates are full. I gave equal food to everyone. It's equal in name only. Isn't it? It's an insult to the word equal. So like that, Dhritarashtra said, you take the Khandaprastha. It was a utter wilderness. There's nothing over there. But the Pandavas, again, let's not fight. Let's not destroy our dynasty. So what did they do? They worked. Sometimes people think living spiritually or living traditionally means, going to a village and living in a rural life. No, in the past also there were cities. This Vrindavan is a village, Mathura is a city. And when the Pandavas converted a forest into a city, a flourishing metropolis, that's considered a sign of laudable development. The Pandavas worked hard. It was Krishna's merciful intervention. But through it all, it was not just Krishna magically did it. Arjuna fought against the entire entire army of the Devatas. And that's how he was able to burn Khandaprastha. And then afterwards it was converted. So what the Pandavas did? They, by developing that place, they naturally, organically got the position of leadership. So, in the world, somebody who wants the position, they often fight. And in the fighting, they cause harm to others. But instead of fighting to take over someone else's position, the disposition of a leader is that let me organically become a leader. So that was a wilderness. The Pandavas brought value to the place. And the value became so much that even some of the Brahmins and some of the artists, some of the business people, the Brahmanas, Vaishyas, Shudras, from Hastinapur came to Indraprastha. And that again inflamed the envy of Duryodhana. So Duryodhana was only concerned, why are people valuing him more than me? He was never concerned, what value am I adding to people's lives? So for all of us, when we study the Bhagavad Gita, we have the opportunity in whatever situation we are in to try to add value to others' lives. That is the disposition of a leader that we can all cultivate. Service attitude is essentially that. Whenever we meet someone, how can I add some value to this person's life? Krishna himself adopts this approach. Now, I'll conclude with this point. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not use his position as God to thrust or to stuff his message down Arjuna's throat. If Krishna had wanted to do that, Krishna could have finished the entire Bhagavad Gita in 6 words. I am God. Obey me. Fight. Bhagavad Gita Sampurnam. So Krishna did not do that. Krishna he built a reasoned argument, slowly, steadily addressing Arjuna's questions and persuaded Arjuna. So Krishna himself, when he was dealing with Arjuna, his mode was not domination, that you have to obey me. No, it was persuasion. He got Arjuna to himself understand how Krishna's plan was good for him. He let Arjuna ask questions and he answered Arjuna's questions, and that's how he persuaded Arjuna. Now some people may not be persuaded. The same message that Krishna spoke to Arjuna, Sanjay heard it and Sanjay spoke it to Dhritarashtra. And was Dhritarashtra persuaded? He was blind physically and he was blind metaphysically. So he stayed the way he was. So when we try to work through persuasion, some people will succeed, some people will not. But that will be much more sustainable. We won't need force to get people to comply. It will be through persuasion, through inspiration, and this is the model of sustainable leadership. So, for a person, nowadays we are talking about environment being sustainable, progress being sustainable. So, leadership also is sustainable when somebody has the capacity to persuade, the capacity to inspire. We may not have a position today, we may get a position tomorrow, and we may no longer have a position day after tomorrow. But we can always have the disposition of leadership. And that is what the Bhagavad Gita, through Krishna's example, shows how it is to be done and inspires all of us also to do the same. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. We talked about the leadership based on the Bhagavad Gita. So I talked about 4 points primarily. I talked about how all of us are meant to be CEOs of our life. So the Gita is a leadership book for everyone, that we are all meant to be self-leaders. I talked about the acronym SIP. I is, anyone remembers? We are all informal leaders. We have circles of influence, and then P was, we have all potential to become leaders. And with respect to potential, we broadly discussed this whole quadrant. Actually, we talked about first the disposition of leadership. Disposition versus position. So disposition is more organizational. It is given to us by external. Is that right? No. So position is organizational. Position is given by externals. The disposition is organic. It is something which is internally cultivable. And position is based on how much others value us. But disposition is about how much value we bring to others. So value we bring to others. And now if we have a position, we have a greater opportunity to bring that value. But the position is not required. And based on that, we discussed these 4 quadrants. Somebody has the position of leadership and somebody has the disposition of leadership. So when somebody has position but no disposition, we discussed 2 examples. Who were they? Dhritarashtra, whose activities were unproductive, and Duryodhan, whose activities were counterproductive. They are downright harmful. So either there is a disuse of power or there is abuse of power. And if there is disuse, doesn't use power, somebody else will use the power through them. Then we talked about somebody not having either the position or the disposition. Who were they? Yes, the brothers of Duryodhan. So they just followed him. Now generally these will be ineffective. These are the most harmful, most destructive. Here they are harmless unless they start following those who have the position without the disposition. That's what happened to Duryodhana. Then there are those who have the disposition but not the position. We discussed almost all the good guys in the Mahabharata. They were in this category. Vidura was here, Yudhishthira was here, Arjuna was here. Even Karna had some disposition. But over a period of time, he actually lost that disposition as he gained the position. So Vidura, in one sense, never moved in this direction. But Yudhishthira and Arjuna, they moved in the direction. So this is the most effective situation to be in, where we have power and we can use that power for a good purpose. So for all of us to move toward the disposition of leadership, what can we do? Moving for disposition is we focus on abhyasa and vairagya. Abhyas is we cultivate the disposition and we try to add value with persistence. We persist in doing something which is adding value to people's life, and we have vairagya. Vairagya means abstinence. We don't get attached. That if people don't accept what we have. So we discuss how Srila Prabhupada was an organic leader like this. Nobody respected him when he was in America initially, but he earned that respect by the value that he was providing to others. And for all of us, Krishna himself, in his interaction with Arjuna, he does not draw on his position. He uses the disposition of leadership. He persuades. He does not dominate. So we all can, whatever place we are in, try to cultivate the disposition of leadership and thereby bring value to others' lives. And depending on how people reciprocate, how our karma is, what Krishna's plan is, we may get a smaller or bigger position of leadership. But through the disposition of leadership, we can increase the value of our life and the value that we bring to others. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, I have a question. I have got confusion on that third quadrant. That like if we are cultivating the disposition, then we should go for position or not? Like
Should we go for position? Well, we can seek position. We can put ourselves, like they put your hat in the ring. So we can put ourselves in the arena, but we don't have to focus on that. We don't have to fixate on that.
in order to
Increase our influence. Say, if you have studied philosophy nicely and we would like to give classes, so we can tell our senior devotees that, can I give class, or what can I do to become more qualified to give classes? We don't have to say that we don't see. We can desire it, but we don't demand it. That we should have that submission also, that it will be given automatically, and we can always informally, if you're sharing philosophy with others and others get inspired, somebody come, we are not giving the class also, but after the class we're talking with others, and some people become inspired by that, then seniors will also notice that. So we can take steps, but we shouldn't focus our entire energy on just seeking the position. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. Prabhuji, I have a question. When Karna had disposition, and then he went into quadrant 3. Now, after he is already in quadrant 3, first, how he should realize that he has lost his disposition, and second, how to come back to the original disposition state, whether he may have a position or not, but disposition is important, I think.
Yeah. See, we can never outsource our values to someone else. We may follow someone, but whoever we are following, that should not violate our conscience. Like say somebody becomes, in the name of God, somebody becomes a jihadi follower. Say some poor child is born in in Afghanistan or Pakistan, and the child is struggling for food. And some people from madrasa come and say that, we will provide you food, we will provide you all the needs for living. You just come and stay with us and learn from us. The child can actually be grateful. But as the child grows up, if the child realizes that, actually I am being trained to become a terrorist, and their whole purpose is that I should kill innocent people. Now does gratitude mean, is gratitude a good thing? Of course. But does gratitude to those who saved his life mean that he should start killing others? No. That gratitude to others and wanting to do something good for those who have done good for us should not lead to the violation of our own conscience. So, Karna he had talent, but he had no position. So Duryodhana gave him position. Naturally, it is that he will feel grateful, and he should feel grateful. Initially, he didn't even know. Most likely, he didn't know about Duryodhana's mentality. And initially, he opposed. When Duryodhana made the plan to send the Pandavas to Varnava to have them burned, he said, why do you do all this? Just let's call them for a fight, we'll defeat them, and you can have the whole kingdom for yourself. So, Shakuni said, you're a child, you don't know anything about politics. And he silenced him. And now Karna initially opposed. But in the power dynamic, how it happened was that Duryodhan was here, Karna was below him, and Shakuni was above him. In the sense that although Shakuni did not have the power that Duryodhan had, Shakuni had power over Duryodhan. Isn't it? Because Duryodhan listened to him. So what happened now when Duryodhan started doing what Shakuni was telling him repeatedly? Karna had a choice. He didn't have to break his friendship, but he did not have to keep following him. So when the Pandavas were being humiliated in the gambling match, Karna went along with that. See what happened for him, wanting to be included in Duryodhan's inner circle became a big priority. A sole priority, in fact. And it happens that somebody is studying in college and they've grown up in a good family, they have good values, but they want to hang out with the cool crowd. And the cool crowd, what do? They take drugs, they do eve teasing, they do all kind of things which should not be done. And just to belong to that crowd, a kid may start doing those things. In fact, sometimes a kid may go and do more than what others are doing, just to gain respect in that circle. So that is what Karna did when he suggested, let's disrobe Draupadi. So to his credit, Karna expressed regret for what he had done. To Bhishma and to Krishna both. And especially the way he dealt with Draupadi. But Duryodhan never expressed any regret. See, everybody has regrets in life. But what are the regrets about? Some people have regret that they did wrong. Duryodhan's regret was that I did something wrong, but I did not get the result after doing that also. My plan did succeed, not that my plan was wrong. So Karna had some good sense, but unfortunately he let his good sense get overshadowed. So following anyone should not be at the expense of violating our own conscience, our own basic understanding of right and wrong, our basic human decency. When the Holocaust happened, there have been many killings of people, there have been many genocides across human history. But the Holocaust was unique. Holocaust was where Hitler killed the Jews. It is unique in human history because the only time where industrial efficiency was brought to mass slaughter. If you kill people, you have to do something with their bodies. But use gas chamber, just reduce them to steam. Just steam, vapor basically. It's horrendous. So after Hitler was killed, Hitler died himself by suicide. Then the other leaders who followed him, there were the famous Nuremberg trials. And they gave the excuse, we were in the military, and in military our basic ethos is follow our superiors. So we are only following orders, we are only following our authorities. So the Nuremberg trial decided that, yes, following authority is an important principle, but there is a basic sense of human decency. Following the principle, rules of military to follow your authority does not mean that you systematically kill civilians in cold blood. So Duryodhan, now if they had not followed the authority, what would have happened? They would have lost the position. They would have been kicked out of the military. They might have been put in jail. Or they could just have walked away. They could have resigned from it. But they would have lost the position. So what happened? In trying to hold on to the position, they lost the disposition. So that's what happened to Duryodhan. In trying to hold on to the position, he ended up losing the disposition. That's what happened to Karna. He ended up losing the disposition. Okay?
Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhu. Very nice insight. Prabhu, just in developing, like in a community, like what I usually face a problem, like given a position of leadership, but when dealing with the people now, there are two category of people where I really, it is very difficult for me to deal with this kind of people. Like one kind of person is like, he has not disposition of a leader, but he want a position of leader and he want to change the system. And second is like he has disposition of leadership, but he is very much afraid that if I get position, then I will get more and more responsibility and then I will entangle in that. So I want to be like very much secure I will do what I want to do, as much I can add to the values, but I don't want to take a position and change the system. Whereas he has that potential, he can be a position, he can come at a position level, he can change the system also, but he don't want to take that position. He has very good disposition. And another level.
Good question. So a practical question. Somebody has the disposition but is reluctant to take the position because they fear entanglement. So I think that happens because of a deficient understanding of bhakti. See, bhakti has two distinct aspects to it. That this is the full chapter in the book on work as worship. So if I am here in this world, this is the material world and this is the spiritual world. So normally we think of bhakti means we go from this world to the other world. So this is world transcending aspect of bhakti. And this is definitely an important aspect of bhakti, and this is the focus of the Bhagavatam. Parikshit Maharaj has renounced the world and he is now focusing directly on remembering Krishna. But there is another aspect of bhakti that is world transforming. Not world transcending, but world transforming. And this is the focus of the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna wants to renounce the world, but Krishna says engage with the world. So both are aspects of bhakti. And different devotees may prioritize different things. But if we consider the world transforming aspect simply as entanglement, then that is a deficient understanding of bhakti. So, for example, Brahmanas, they prefer a more advisory role than executive role. So their focus is more on transcending the world. Let others transform the world. We'll give them some advice. Now Kshatriyas get their hands dirty. They have to get themselves involved in dealing with things. So then for them, world transcending doesn't work. For them, they have to do world transforming, isn't it? So terrible things were happening in Bangladesh. So now that's where ISKCON as an organization and ISKCON devotees faced an identity crisis. Now, are we a Brahminical organization or are we a Kshatriya organization? If we are a Brahminical organization, we can only give advice and try to influence those who are executors to some extent. But are we also meant to be Kshatriyas? What do we do with people who have the Kshatriya mentality? Can we accommodate them? Can we create some facility for them? That's a question. So now those who have only the Brahminical mentality, those who are world transcending, all these things keep happening in the world. The world is dukkhalaya. Don't get agitated by this. That can seem very heartless. These are our own devotees. Now we should feel distressed if anybody is being tormented. For somebody is following Sanatana Dharma and being tormented, we should feel even more so. Krishna says we should have empathy, 6.32. Atma upamyena sarvatra. Samam pashyati yo Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. That we see others' happiness and distress as something similar to what is happening to us. We see the similarity of all living beings in their happiness and distress. So some people may focus more on world transforming. Some devotees may focus on world transcending. So, but both can do this in a devotional mindset. So now, if we are only fearing entanglement, and that's why we don't want to take a responsible service, then that is a deficient understanding of bhakti. Now, of course, can we be entangled by getting involved in services? Yes. But sometimes not doing any services can also entangle us with our mind. Isn't it? The idle mind is the devil's workshop. Isn't it? So we have to see, each one of us has to find the balance between world transcending and world transforming. How much we need to do our sadhana and how much we can do. So basically world transcending is largely our sadhana. World transforming is our seva. Krishna talks about this in 12.8 and 9. And he talks about 12.10 and 11. He talks about multiple levels at which you can connect with bhakti. We can connect with him. So both are required. Now going forward to the other situation where somebody wants the position but they don't have the disposition. Then we need to communicate to them if they are ready to listen, how they can develop the disposition. What is it that is good about them, and what is it that needs to be made good? So if we are objective in giving people parameters, this is where you need to work on. Then we can see whether they work on it. So in general, what happens is, in leadership, it is always that we have to make some assessment. Assessment or judgment. Some people say don't have a judgmental mentality. Well, leadership means making judgments. That's essential required. But the assessment can be subjective, or the assessment can be objective. Now in real life, it's a combination of both. Tell somebody you don't have the disposition of a leadership, that's why you can't become. If somebody wants to be initiated, you don't have the consciousness to be initiated. Now how do I develop the consciousness? No, I'll tell you when you have developed it. Well, that leaves the person completely in the dark. What am I to do? Isn't it? And then we can say, okay, you come regularly for the satsang programs, you take up some seva over here. When there are conflicts among devotees, be ready to take a humble position. So we tell them something tangible, something objective. So now, is the objective completely going to lead to the subjective? Because somebody can tick all the dots, tick all the slots, but still we may feel they don't have the consciousness. But we can't really control to that extent. So we can try to give people some objective parameter that they can work on. If they work on it, then we let them have that position, and then it depends on, it's between them and Krishna. If somebody doesn't have that, is not ready to develop the disposition, then they may have to go outside. And then you can create your own system and implement your vision over there. And that's also fine. It's not that everybody has to work within the system only. So some people need more space, and that's fair enough. If they want the space, they can get the space, but then they can't demand. Generally, in leadership, what happens is, we can either give freedom or we can give facility. We cannot give people both. Say, if you have given me the facility to speak here in this temple, now I may have interest in political philosophy, or I may want to give a spiritual perspective on Bollywood movies. Now I may actually be giving a spiritual perspective, but that I cannot do over here. If you have provided me the facility, I don't have the freedom to speak whatever I want. I may have a certain amount of freedom, but it comes with certain constraints. On my own YouTube channel, I can comment on political issues. If I want, I can do contemporary social commentary. That's fair enough. So we have to understand that this is just the way of life everywhere, isn't it? So either if you want to be a part of the system, you want a facility in the system, then we have to give up a certain level of freedom. If the freedom is very important for you, then fine. Then you can't be a part of the system. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. And you create your own system. Okay. So, shall we stop here? Okay. Any Mataji have any questions? Okay, one last question we can have.
Priji, I wanted to understand, where does Krishna come in those quadrants, or is he beyond those?
Okay. In general, we can look at Krishna from a transcendental perspective. And if you look at it from a transcendental perspective, then he's completely beyond all these categories. But Krishna doesn't always act from the transcendental perspective. See, Krishna doesn't act in this world. He shows his Chaturbhuja Rupa. But he takes on the form of a small baby who needs to be whisked away, carried to safety by his father. So, if we see, Krishna exhibits the disposition of a leader. So, I would say that he has a disposition, and over a period of time, he acquires some position. He is called as Dwarkadhish, although he is not officially the king of Dwarka. He has significant amount of power in Dwarka. So he has position, he has the disposition, and gradually he acquires the position of a leader. Okay. So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Itai Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna. So we are very fortunate and grateful. We are very grateful to His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He kindly shared with us this wonderful knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in such a wonderful way of understanding whether we have the position officially and disposition actually, and how that matters. If someone does not does has all the quadrants, Prabhuji so nicely explained with the using the devices. So it's so wonderful. Prabhuji is here. Let us thank him to kindly come over to Sri Sri Radha Govinda Devji Mandir at ISKCON Thane in our traditional method by one time loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I saw some more hands up. You can also come up and talk to Prabhuji till the time he is here. So here is the new book, the Gita for the CEO, written by Prabhuji, and it's available right there. It's available today at a very nice 20% off discount prices, and devotees who wish to take it can also get signatures right of the author right here. So I remember when I was in my second year, that time I was thinking I should have some books in which the author is himself signing, and right then and right there I got the signature of His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He also wrote Krishna Matir Astu. May Krishna always, may you always, may your consciousness be always remembering Krishna, something like that. So, and he told me the meaning also. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also be blessing like that, someone who is already a devotee. And Krishna Matir Ahu, when someone is upcoming devotee. So Prabhuji explained with that. So another opportunity for all of us to grab this copy and get the signatures, books right there. So along with that, this is Gita for the CEO, and the Bhagavad Gita by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada is also available. That is on this marathon time. It's available at a lower price. Kindly take opportunity. We can, if you have your own copy, you can take more to gift it to others, and you can also choose to kindly do Shastra Dan, Tula Dan, etc. We have all the opportunities here. So इस बहुत ही अच्छे संधि में गीता जयंती के उपलक्ष्य पर पूरे महीने में हम कम लक्ष्मी में भगवद गीता जो है वो प्रदान करते हैं, तो भक्त चाहें तो उसको ले सकते हैं और लोगों को बांट सकते हैं. हम यहाँ पे जो भी भगवद गीता गीतादान में होता है उसको हम जाके ऐसे लोगों को देते हैं जिनको कि पास में खुद लक्ष्मी नहीं है वो लेने का. तो कृपया करके इसका संधि का फ़ायदा उठाएं. और फिलहाल ये भगवद गीता और गीता फॉर CEO दोनों पुस्तक अवेलेबल हैं, आप इसका ले सकते हैं. थैंक यू. हरे कृष्णा. हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी.